Good evening, Spirit and Truth Sanctuary. Good to see you joining with us tonight. And we are so happy that you were here with us. Welcome to our series on the power of now. 2021 is the year at Spirit and Truth. We are going to get happy and see what happens. Further, we're going to get happy, stay happy, and be happy. And so happiness is just the natural state of our being. If this is your first time with us, Spirit and Truth Sanctuary is an inclusive community where all of God's children are both welcome and wanted. We see past the external accidents or secondary considerations of race, gender, sexuality, political party, religion. We know that we are all one mind, one blood, one family, one spirit, and that's where we exist in consciousness. At Spirit and Truth Sanctuary is beyond all of those labels that desire to separate and segregate us. We know that all of us are going to change tonight, maybe just a little bit. Change is the only constant in the universe. We all change, but we change at our own pace and in our own space. And so we encourage you to eat what you can tonight. Religion tells you what to think. Spirituality teaches you how to think. And so we've not come really to teach you anything, but just to remove the obstacles that keep you from seeing what you already know. Welcome again to our Wednesday night series, The Power of Now. Just a quick reflection. What an historic day it has been today. I had class early this morning, and as soon as class was over, Brandy, myself, my sister, my daughter Esther, we have been glued to the television the entire day. And what an amazing historic day it has been. And we certainly celebrate with all those who are celebrating tonight. The first female woman of color inaugurated as the Vice President of the United States. Her husband, the first second gentleman, and the first Jewish American in the White House. As I observed everything today, it seemed like most of what I felt in my heart was about inclusion, even the word inclusion a lot. Lady Gaga sang, who is, whether she wants to be or not, represents in some ways as a bit of a spokesperson for the LGBTQ community. J-Lo sang next, Latina, Puerto Rican. Garth Brooks sang next, who is represents country music. The young woman who read the piece on equality, just fantastically gifted, laureate winner. We're actually going to use some of her writings in our responsive reading this coming Sunday. I noticed even President Biden's closest Secret Service agent was an Asian American man. And so we give thanks for a peaceful transition of power, and we give thanks for the spirit of inclusion that we sensed all day today, and also for the spirit of humility. I will say again, Spirit and Truth Sanctuary is not a political organization, and everyone is welcome here, but it was very heartwarming today to see such diversity, gentleness, a genteel spirit, humility, and the spirit of love. Watch this, exuding peace and not imposing power. We give thanks for that. When the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will finally know peace. So with all that said, let me just make this quick announcement. We are going to be done tonight by 7:55. Because there is an amazing concert that's happening, I believe, beginning at 8 o'clock tonight, and probably some artists that all of us like. I know 3 or 4 of my favorite artists are performing tonight. I don't want to miss it. I don't want you to miss it. I was raised in church, I feel like, about 6 days of the week. I think Friday was the only day that we didn't go to church, but we fasted half a day on Friday, so I felt like part of that was still church stuff. But I remember at times, especially like on Super Bowl Sunday night, we would have to have church service, and man, I would just think, I love God, I love me some Jesus, I love our church, but man, I really wish I was home right now. I wish I were home right now watching the Super Bowl. And that's how preachers' kids feel. And a part of, if we be honest, part of the reason that we didn't cancel our Sunday night service for so many years is because we felt like other churches were having it. We didn't want our members to go visit other churches and then leave, and then we wouldn't have enough people to support the mission and message and mission and vision. The other reason is because we had this thing that, the whole day Sunday was the Lord's Day. Now we understand every day is the Lord's Day, even in our laughter, in our enjoying a football game or an inauguration concert. That's the Lord's Day as well. But I give thanks that we have found some balance and that we can be spiritual and also enjoy some wonderful moments of our lives. And so, welcome to Spirit and Truth Sanctuary tonight. I'll ask you if you want to close those eyes, take a big deep breath. As we give and take that breath, we are setting up the conditions to be fed tonight. We are detaching from the known and celebrating the beginner's mind. We are awake to the truth that faith comes by hearing. Tonight, we willingly walk into the kingdom seated at the feet of Jesus, the master teacher, with inquisitive, curious minds, like a child willing to be taught. God, we empty out what we know. We welcome the unknown tonight. Lead us into new and green, even unfamiliar pastures. We are open and willing. In Christ's name we pray. They all would say, amen. Let there be light. Let there be awakening. I'll ask if you will read our prayer of surrender together tonight. We also call it our invitation of truth. It's just how we get our minds, our spirits, our hearts open to whatever Spirit wants to lead us into tonight. Come on, let's read together. Spirit of truth, carry me where you will. Bring to me what you will. Take from me what you will. Awaken in me what you will. The Christ man is around me. The Christ mind is in me. The Christ power flows through me. And the Christ mystery exists as me. I believe it. I perceive it. And now I receive it. I am surrendered. Amen. And so it is. Whew. We're glad you're here tonight. We're going to have a great time. I did want to encourage everyone to comment tonight and comment early, because Brandy does kind of a masterful job every week of trying to assimilate if we have a ton of comments and find a thread of what the interest was. And so we always try to do that, but we encourage all the comments. The teaching really is just a jumping off point so that we can testify to each other. We can learn from each other. Iron can sharpen iron. Also, you can download the notes tonight in your event description. We'd love for you to follow along with us. As we begin tonight, our subject is transformation through the body. And notice the linguistics there, that it's not transformation of the body. It's not transformation out of the body or away from the body or other than the body. It is transformation. The word there is through the body. And we're going to find that Tolle is going to focus a lot of the teaching tonight on accepting the body as part of you, not as a rejection of the body in some attempt to be more religious, holy, or spiritual in some ways. I found it to be enlightening to me tonight. I resonated with it, and hopefully it'll be something, if you can't eat it all, at least chew on it tonight. I think we're going to be in some new and green pastures tonight. Most religions have condemned or denied the body. It seems that spiritual seekers have always regarded the body as a hindrance or even as sinful. In a moment, we're going to talk about Adam and Eve's response to their bodies. But before we go back 6,000 years or 7,000 years or to the metaphor of the garden, present day religions that I have been associated with, specifically holiness, and that could be apostolic, Pentecostal, Kojic, Church of God, Assemblies of God. There are many different branches of holiness that deny the body, whether it be in trying to cover up everything, not allowing a woman to wear pants because, God forbid, we see the curves of a woman's beautiful body, or even sleeves down to the, and that's not just Christianity. That is both in the more literal Hasidic forms of Judaism, that also finds its way into Islam with their covering up of the body and the encouragement of their ideas of shyness. It's actually one of their doctrines, is encouraging shyness. What is it about the body that becomes sinful or is taboo to us? We're going to get into that tonight. Why have so few seekers become finders? On the level of the body, humans are very close to animals. All the basic bodily functions we share with the animals. After the fall, from a state of grace and oneness, now listen to that. After the fall, from a state of grace and oneness, spiritual oneness with God, when we talk about the atonement, at one-ment, it is not that we're not one with God, but the next word there is we are in the illusion that we are not at one with God. And so the atonement doesn't make us one with God. It reminds us we are at one with God. We have always been one with God in the image and likeness of God and good. the state of grace and oneness, into illusion or separation consciousness, humans suddenly woke up in what seemed to be an animal body. And they found this very disturbing. Don't fool yourself. You are no more than an animal. Interesting. This seemed to be the truth that was staring them in the face. But it was too disturbing a truth to tolerate. Adam and Eve realized, knew that they were naked, and they became afraid. Unconscious denial of their animal nature set in very quickly. Isn't that interesting? Unconscious denial of their animal nature. Now, there's a lot packed into that. Okay, that's a loaded sentence. What does that mean? That part of us is animalistic. The need to survive, the need to procreate, to eat, to find shelter, to probably adapt or even evolve to our changing environments. There's nothing necessarily wrong with having part of you be an animal nature. There are times that you need that animal nature. You need to learn in situations sometimes how to survive, whether it's fight or flight. We need to learn how to treat this body, how to shelter it, how to eat, how to hunt, how to gather. There's nothing wrong with the animal nature. What's wrong is the denial of it in religious context that makes the body evil, that makes the body something that we can't celebrate. The threat that they might be taken over by powerful instinctual drives and revert back to complete unconsciousness was indeed a very real one. Before we go to the next sentence, which is really good, I highlighted it. Let me give you my opinion. And again, this is just an opinion I hold. It's not a belief. It's not a doctrine. It is something I've considered for several years. People ask me all the time, what do you believe about this or that? And I say, I don't believe anything about that. I consider, because I always remain open to spirit that can give or take anything that I have. And so I don't believe this. It's just something that I consider. Let me preface it by saying that. I believe I have the opinion, the consideration that creation or us taking on God's image and likeness possibly did happen 6,000 years ago. There was a sharing of consciousness, an awakening from only the lower aspects of of our animal nature into some level of human and divine awareness. I don't know how much we changed 6,000 years ago physically or physiologically. I think the change was mental. God shared, as Jesus said, watch this, to the disciples, regarding the disciples, then he, watch this, opened their minds so that they could understand the scriptures. That's in the Gospels. It's in actually 3 of the Synoptic Gospels. And so how do we interpret that or relate that as a parallel to the garden metaphor? Then God, in the garden, opened our consciousness so that we could understand as divine beings. Okay, so does that mean humans were created 6,000 years ago? I don't think any of us believe that. I believe that there were some processes of evolution, adaptation. It has been proven both cryogenically and even by carbon dating that there were humanoids, what we are, human or Homo erectus, standing up straight, that were existing simultaneously with Cro-Magnon on some of the European continents, which is amazing that on the same continent you would have those still in the evolutionary physical process and those who had evolved to where we are now. And so does that shake my faith? Come on now. If your faith is like an oak tree, when the wind blows, it's probably going to break at some point. But if your faith is a little bit more like a palm tree made of many different things, there's a level of flexibility and fluidity to it. And so instead of breaking, we can bend a little bit. Any faith that is stoic will be shattered. But a faith that is flexible, and so if you find out, what if evolution is real? What if the earth is millions and billions of years old? Oh my God, the Bible isn't true. And come on now, faith is flexible. Blessed are the flexible, they shall not be broken. And so we're not against science. That's one thing that I appreciate about today, is that there is no denigration of science or scientific thinking or the scientists that help us in the medical fields. And as Christians, we don't have to be anti-science. I hold in thought that 6,000 years ago there was there was a leap in consciousness. There was a quantum awakening where something was shared with the animalistic, okay, human beings that were already on the earth, and there was an awakening that began to happen. And so that's just my thought. You certainly can have yours as well. Let's look at the next sentence. It says, shame and taboos appeared around certain parts of the body and bodily functions, especially sexuality. The light of their consciousness was not yet strong enough to make friends with their animal nature, to allow it to be and even enjoy that aspect of themselves. Let me stop here for just a minute. I'm going to remind you of an Oprah Winfrey show that she did years ago, and it was with wives of husbands who were addicted to either pornography or going out to strip clubs, and the wives had just had enough of it. And so I certainly am not promoting that. I believe in living in balance and living responsibly. Trust me, I'm neither a prude or a philanderer. I'm in the balance. However, Oprah noticed that all of these wives weren't really caring for themselves. Their sexual openness to their husbands was not really alive anymore. And so after she had heard all these sob stories of their husbands, going other places, trying to get their animal nature, okay, satisfied, she said to the wives, well, instead of him going to the strip club, why don't you strip for him? Why don't you become his fantasy? Which I thought was a common sense thing for Oprah to say. And several of the women spoke up and said, I don't think my children would approve of that. Another woman said out loud, I know my pastor in my church wouldn't be for that. And Oprah said, what does your children and your pastor have to do with what happens in your bedroom? What Oprah was saying is, you've allowed religion to push your husband away from you. You've become so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. And so now, in the denial of some of your animal nature and of your spouses, there's now these other ways of trying to get those things fulfilled. And so thank you, Bishop Potentate Oprah Winfrey, for bringing us back to some level of rational balance in our sexual understandings. All right, let alone to go deeply into it to find the divine hidden within it, the reality within the illusion. Wow. So they did what they had to do. They began to disassociate from their bodies. They now saw themselves as having a body rather than just being it. Or, I'm not my body, I'm separate from it. This thing is going to, it's not who I am. I don't like these desires. It forces me into sin and sinfulness and sinful thoughts. All this became a disassociation with the body. Keep coming. When religions arose, and so we're going way back, when religions arose, the disassociation became even more pronounced as the you are not your body belief. Countless people in the East and West throughout the ages have tried to find God, salvation, or enlightenment through the denial of the body. This took the form of denial of sense pleasures and of sexuality, in particular, fasting and other ascetic practices. All right, I'm going to go here for just about 60 seconds and ask you if this is too much for you to eat. Don't eat it, okay? But one of the things in growth and in spirituality is not being afraid to go into some areas that are a little bit, they haven't been trespassed upon in some religious circles. I'm at the place in my journey where one of the only questions that really matters to me isn't what book do you read, what name do you call God, what synagogue, temple, mosque, what day do you worship, what are your opinions of Jesus' divinity or virgin birth. Those are secondary considerations for me. What's important to me is one question: is it working? Is it working for you? And if it's not working, we got to take a step back from it and say, okay, I can't keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Okay, so is the suppression of sexuality in religious circles working? That's an interesting question. Is it working for those of us who are heterosexual? Is it working for those of us who are homosexual or non-binary or LGBTQ? Is it working in any religious structure to suppress our sexuality? and you'll forgive me for this example, but is asceticism, is vows of chastity, is watch this, being married to God, and so I can't satisfy any of my sexual desires outside of that. Is that working in some of the church structures? I would say a resounding ill to the no, and I'll be cautious there. No, it's not working, and so it has to find other ways of expression. It has to find abusive ways and perverted ways and some way to hide around and do things. And so instead of embracing our sexuality, when we hide it, when we suppress it, watch this, it comes out in weird and even harmful ways to the person that's being suppressed and to the people that are experiencing sometimes the predatory type behavior. And so my desire is not just to condemn, but let's take another look at it. Not with condemning eyes, not with judgmental eyes, not with telling someone they're a pervert or they're gross or they're sinful, but to say, okay, how can we still have God as the center of our lives, but not suppress our sexuality so that it doesn't both hurt us and it doesn't hurt others around us? Just my 2 cents. If you can't eat it, then just let it be. They even inflicted pain on the body in an attempt to weaken or punish it because they regarded the body, as sinful. In Christianity, this used to be called the mortification of the flesh. Wow. Others tried to escape from the body by entering trance states or seeking out-of-body experiences. Many still do. Even the Buddha is said to have practiced body denial through fasting and extreme forms of asceticism, and that's the denial of sexual activity, for 6 years. But he did not attain enlightenment until after he had given up this practice. The fact is that no one has ever become enlightened through the denying of the body, denying or fighting the body, or through an out-of-body experience. Although such an experience can be fascinating and can give you a glimpse of the state of liberation from the material form, in the end you will always have to return to the body where the essential work of transformation takes place. Very interesting. Let me stop here and give you this point. The Apostle Paul had what is described as an out-of-body experience. He was taken into a seventh heaven. Come up here, Paul. I'll show you things, all these kind of things. John the Revelator as well. But then Paul came back from this seventh heaven, back into his body. And he no longer wanted to be associated with the material form. So much so that he was telling his followers, don't get married. Jesus is coming back very quickly. There's no reason for you to get married. And the only reason you should ever get married, watch it, this is Paul's premarital counseling. Only those of you who are really burning with lust should get married. So let me give you an unsolicited political announcement, public announcement tonight. All of us burn with lust. Come on here, talk to me. Yes, because we are, God put those desires in us. And so for Paul to even suggest the only reason you should get married is if you're overcome with passion, desire, all of us in varying levels and degrees have passion, have desire. It's part of our animal nature. We are part animal, we are part God. That's what makes us humans. And so even Paul's denial of the flesh was not really working for him or even for his followers. All right. Keep coming. Transformation is through the body. I love that. Not away from it. This is why no true master has ever advocated fighting or leaving the body, although their mind-based followers often have. Of the ancient teachings concerning the body, only certain fragments survive, such as Jesus' statement. I love how often Tolle quotes Jesus in a New Thought Enlightened form. Jesus said this, your whole body will be filled with light. Or they only survive as myths, as the belief that Jesus never relinquished his body, but remained one with it and ascended into heaven with it. Isn't that interesting? Jesus ascended into heaven with his body. Even we know it was at least a similar body because Scripture records of doubting Thomas to put your hand in my side. So the scar was still there. The wounds were still there. And so it wasn't necessarily a different body. It was just a different mind that Christ was walking with in his resurrected form. But he still was in his body and ascended with that body. Almost no one to this day has understood those fragments or the hidden meaning of certain myths. And the, in quotations, "you are not your body" belief has prevailed universally, leading to body denial and attempts to escape from the body. Countless seekers have thus been prevented from attaining spiritual realization for themselves and becoming finders. All spiritual teachings originate from the same source. Wow, wow, wow. Isn't that beautiful? All spiritual teachings, no matter how they flow down that mountain, what stream they find themselves in, they all come from the same source. There is only one mind in the universe. It is the I am that I am. We can call it Yahweh, we can call it Jesus, we can call it Buddha, Krishna. There is only the I am that I am. There's only one source, one mind. They all come from the same source. In that sense, there is and always has been only one master who manifests in many different forms. I am that master, and so are you. Whew, look at that. Once you are able to access the source within, my God, look at the Christ waking up on the inside of us. And the way to it is through the inner body. Although all spiritual teachings originate from the same source, once they become verbalized and written down, they are obviously no more than collections of words, and a word is nothing but a signpost, as we talked about earlier. All such teachings are signposts pointing the way back to the source. I've already spoken of the truth that is hidden within your body, but I will summarize for you again the lost teachings of the masters. So here is another signpost. What you perceive as a dense physical structure called the body, which is subject to disease, old age, and death, is not ultimately real, or is not you. It is a misperception of your essential reality that is beyond birth and death, and is due to the limitations of your mind, which, having lost touch with being, creates the body as evidence of its illusory belief in separation and to justify its state of fear. My goodness, that's a lot. That's some dense reading right there. That last paragraph could take us a month to decipher through all that. And for time's sake, we won't exegete it all the way. But the body, in other words, art is imitating life, is what Tolle is saying. Is that we incarnated to understand ourselves more fully. We incarnated in the body to understand through a sensory world that spirit that doesn't take on form is still real. Just because it's not material doesn't mean it's real. And so we incarnate from spirit into bodies so that we can experience our divinity in the material world and then know in the spirit world it is real and we are creatively divine beings. Okay. But do not turn away from the body, for within that symbol of impermanence, limitation, and death that you perceive as the illusory creation of your mind is concealed the splendor of your essential and immortal reality. My goodness. In other words, just because your body is aging, don't believe that you're immortal. Yes, your body is mortal, but you are not mortal. You are not passing away. Excuse me, just 1 second. I think I've lost I got an update through here we go. All right, keep coming. So we don't reject, neglect, resist, or even fight the body just because it's passing away. Watch this. In that mind, there is splendor of your essential and immortal reality. Do not turn your attention elsewhere in your search for the truth, for it is nowhere else to be found but within your body. Do not fight against the body, for in doing so, you are fighting against your own reality. You are your body. The body that you can see and touch is only a thin, illusory veil. Wow, my goodness. The body is a veil from our expression in spirit, but you still are spirit as you are inhabiting your body. Underneath it lies the invisible inner body, the doorway into being, into life unmanifested. My goodness. Through the inner body, you are inseparably connected to this unmanifested one life, birthless, deathless, eternally present. Through the inner body, you are forever one with God. My goodness, that is a whole lot of food to eat right there. And I know that hopefully some of you have had some good food to eat tonight. And so if you'd like to make a comment, we certainly want to hear from you tonight. And anything is certain. Nothing is faux pas, nothing is taboo. I tell Brady before we started, even if there's something that is a dissenting voice, I can handle it. Iron sharpens iron as one man sharpens another.
Everybody's kind of quiet tonight. I'm not sure if everyone is distracted. So I will share Miss Irma. Well, first let me back up. Pastor Curtis commented, but I'm not exactly sure where you were in the teaching about the Sistine Chapel paintings are a great example.
Yeah. So the Sistine Chapel, or the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, both in and in the ceiling, I believe, painted by Leonardo da Vinci, who was a great mind. He had to suppress most of his mind because if he expressed it, he thought the Catholic Church officials would kill him for some of the things that he was experimenting with. But a lot of that is nudity. It is the naked bodies. If you see even depictions of David, depictions of early depictions of Moses, it's not as if they're denying that the body is made by God. And so I think we might have given the example a couple of weeks ago how much that bleeds into even our, not even religiously, just into our social constructs of allowing children to play violent video games, to see movies where they're blowing up buildings, shooting people, blood. Um, we don't necessarily always hide our children's eyes from that. But if a woman's naked body or a man's naked body is on television, we trying to get that remote, trying to get that off of there as quickly as we can. And so we are giving the message to our children that something that's abnormal, violence, murder, destruction, is okay, or at least tolerable, but that the body is wrong, it's sinful. And so we have to be cautious of what we're. It's interesting to me in many European countries, they don't have the same restrictions both against nudity in public. You go to a public beach, and sometimes there are men and women that aren't clothed the way that we maybe think they should be. On their televisions, there's not as much censorship about showing nudity just on regular, not cable, just on regular televisions. And watch this: the level of sexual crime is much lower in those nations than it is in America. It is not as suppressed. And you may think, well, that's just ridiculous, letting people do. Well, is it working is the question. Rape is higher in America. Molestation, predatory behavior is higher in America, where there's more censorship of the body. And in European countries where there is not nearly the percentage of sexual crime against others. And so, as Pastor Curtis said, whether it's a Sistine Chapel, artwork, just getting more comfortable with the fact that, of course, we don't want to. No one's promoting being part of a nudist colony tonight, unless that's what you want to do. We're just promoting the idea that your body is not sinful. It's not shameful. You shouldn't hide it, and you should be comfortable in your body.
Well, Miss Irma chimed in. First, she said, "Well, my body is treacherous. It's aging much sooner than it should be." Ha ha! Laugh out loud. Which I would assume that we probably all agree with.
We all agree with, of course.
But no, she wrote in just about talking about the human nature, first the human nature, then the spiritual. So the natural, then the spiritual. And if a man resorts first to the animal nature before spiritual nature, that's completely natural to us, to man. Right. We don't completely understand the spiritual nature in so many settings. Religion has taught us differently.
Wow.
So just the idea there, because those that walked out on faith on what they believe spiritually, they were admonished for their thoughts. Talking about religion here, there's nothing wrong with the animal nature. It is what it is. However, reaching higher to the spiritual nature of Christ and his nature and meaning lifts you higher mentally. And she went on, but I thought you could speak to that.
Think about, Irma, in your understanding of the animal nature. Okay, couple things, couple references I would give you. First of all, when God asked Adam and Eve, "Why are you hiding?" And they said, "Well, we were naked and ashamed. We hid ourselves." And God says to them, "Who told you? How do you know?" Or not how do you have awareness that you are naked, but why do you think it's wrong all of a sudden? Why do you have, watch this, why do you have a judgment about your nakedness now? Not that you're naked. We all know you're naked. But why do you have a judgment about it? You've eaten of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now you have a judgment about your body. Why do you have that judgment? It's interesting to me, away from just about the nakedness of the body, but just about the animal nature, Irma, is how many times Jesus offered food to people. Okay, think about when he fed the multitude, and there's two different stories, one of 5,000, one of about 8,000. He realizes, these people are hungry. There's something in their body needs to be satisfied. They can't survive without food. Okay, and then again, when he raised Jairus' daughter from the dead, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. Put him out of the room. Immediately, when the little girl came back to life, he said, "Give her some food. She needs food." When he sat with the disciples, they came to the shore. Watch this, and Jesus had been resurrected. Even in his resurrected form, he was cooking them fish. He was making them some fish to eat. And so, it's amazing that even as lightened as Jesus was, even in his resurrected bodily form, he still understood that the body is part of who we are, and it shouldn't be rejected or denied. I believe one of the reasons that he went to Lazarus' house, where both Mary and Martha were not just for his emotional comfort, to be with friends and to be with people who understood him, and he didn't have to deal with the critics, the disciples. I just want to have just relax for a couple days. Was also, Martha's care for his body, giving him a comfortable place to sleep, providing him with food that he wanted to eat. And so even someone as enlightened as Jesus, as the Buddha, as Krishna, there's an awareness that our body is a part of who we are. So that was awesome, Irma. Thank you.
Miss Irma, Bobby, I know you guys can't see each other. I got Irma on Facebook, Miss Bobby over on live stream. Miss Bobby said, "Your body might be aging gently, but your mind is still youthful and believing it's still capable of doing amazing new things."
Wow.
So that was her comment to that, which I know we all believe as well. So we have a user on YouTube.
Well, let me say something about Miss Bobby real quick.
Sure.
I want to give some kudos to Miss Bobby, who is, and Brandy and I laugh all the time. My sister was here today, and some representative was on that was a person of color, and we were trying to figure out how old the person was. And LaDonna said, who knows how old they are? Black people don't age. And, Bishop Pearson always jokes me, well, son, black don't crack. But I do want to say of Miss Bobby, she really has found a beautiful balance in how to enjoy her life. She talks to me sometimes about her the diet that she eats, and she enjoys the food, but she also is very, very health conscious at the same time. She goes to certain fitness things that keep her body healthy, and I think that's a wonderful thing. It doesn't mean that we have to work out 7 days a week or never eat some foods that we crave, but there's a balance of that to treat the body. My daughter and I were walking our dogs earlier today, and she said, Dad, think about the things that we eat. Even though we eat healthier now, I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything. We eat ice cream. It's just a lower calorie ice cream. We eat pancakes. They're just, more keto, paleo friendly pancakes. We made personal pizzas today at our house. We had like a little inauguration party, and we were making personal pizzas, and the crust that we used was made of cauliflower. The cheese that we used was cauliflower. I still eat pizza. I still have pancakes. I'm probably going to have me a little ice cream tonight. That's a carb smart ice cream. Doesn't mean you can't enjoy life. It just means maybe you can't eat fried foods every meal. You can't, eat dessert 3 times a day. And so it doesn't mean that there has to be this constant ascetic denial of the body or its cravings, but there is a way to live in balance in that body. And I want to give some kudos to Miss Bobby, who seems to have found that balance. Thanks.
So now we have several to kind of get through, and you're on your countdown. Your 14-minute
14 minutes until the concert. What?
New user tonight on YouTube, AJ.
Hey, AJ.
Asked,
thanks for being here.
In a disconnect with body, how do you suggest we reconnect?
In a disconnect with body, how do we reconnect? One way, and I'm just going to throw some stuff out to you, is by the celebration of the body. If you'll notice, next time you take a shower or a bath, notice how quickly you get dressed after you dry yourself off. Okay, how quickly do you clothe your body once you get out of a bathtub or out of a shower. That'll tell you what you feel about yourself, what you feel about your body. Um, if someone walks in while you're changing, notice your reaction to it. Certainly Brandy and I don't purposely change our clothes in front of our children, especially as they're grown, as they'd be like, ew, put some clothes on, Dad. But we also never, just, oh my God, the children, my God, get me. It was just like, hey, baby, what you need? And in that natural response, you're not creating, even in a child, abnormal thoughts that the body is gross or, all these things. The response to the body. The other thing I would suggest is to feel your body. As you take deep breath in, let that breath go. Feel all the oxygen flowing through your body. The way that you dress is another way to reconnect with your body. Don't be ashamed to look good. To buy clothing that complements your body. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. You're not being a Jezebel. You're not being forcing someone to try to stumble and fall. Beauty is both in the eye of the beholder, and to the pure all things are pure. If someone's going to be lustful, they're going to lust anyway. One of the things at our church is that we celebrate is the liturgical dance. And I remember when we first started doing that, many of the members were just like, those girls are up there dancing and doing their spins, and we can see their legs and their dancing tights. And my predecessor had to deal with that and say, hey, why don't you try to worship with it instead of judging it? Why are you so against the body? And so notice your judgments. Notice how you feel about your own body, and notice how you celebrate yourself. Those are just some little ways that you can do that.
Well, Miss Cheryl shared two things. I'll read one first and then kind of back up into the first question. She shared psychiatrist Dr. David Hawkins posits in one of his books that the consciousness of human beings are still calibrated at lower vibrations of 200 or less, equivalent to primitive animals.
Wow.
Kind of interesting. But then had originally asked Pastor D.E., what are your thoughts regarding humanity evolving to these higher levels of consciousness that Tolle refers to?
Yeah. I think Tolle brings up a very interesting point, Cheryl. Is this Cheryl Handy?
It is Cheryl Handy.
I saw you Sunday, and I was so loving. Wasn't just like watching you during worship, but as I look back, I could just see you worshiping, and so glad to be in the house. E through I was Sunday. You're an H, and so I was so glad to see you. You're so beautiful, so amazing. Even so, think about this, Cheryl. My beautiful wife is sitting here next to me. She has no issue with me saying, you are such a beautiful woman, so attractive, so graceful and elegant, and always dressed so beautifully, and you are beauty to behold. And so there's, even saying that can be faux pas in religious circles, or like a man is being inappropriate, and sometimes even in the workplace that we've had to do that because of men actually being inappropriate at times. But I would say part of the awakening to the body sometimes, or these higher levels of consciousness, is how not to approach it. One of the things that I'm studying right now in a research class is not what to think or even what to research, but the approach. And so if you'll think back with me tonight to what Tolle brought to us, he was showing us a different approach to how the mind should both awaken to the body. And notice, he didn't tell us all just what to do. He also gave us some examples of ways to not resist the body. Think about both monks, priests, nuns, holiness, the denial of the body, the extreme asceticism, and in their desire to reach enlightenment, to tap into nirvana, to reach at oneness with the... Tolle's idea is that you never really get there. Why? Because you're denying a part of who you are. It's an imbalance. And so as we try to awaken to these higher levels of consciousness, it's not a doing away with the body. It is, as Tolle said, we're not transforming out of the body. It's transformation through the body. And so I love that you're reading that. I'm so impressed by your mind. Thank you for sharing. That was amazing.
So Miss Laverne shared something that if LaDonna is hearing, we kind of talked about today. But she shared it is amazing that when God created us, He made our bodies, or gave our bodies, the ability to heal itself. We just need to know how to tap into this. And I like this. Remember, Jesus said, "Greater works you will do." But I
Wow.
don't know that we always necessarily take that and view that towards ourselves. We think
Yeah.
about works as in things that we accomplish and
Right.
do, but what about greater works as in believe
Yeah.
we have the power to heal our bodies
Yeah.
or correct things within our bodies? So I like that.
There is a series of books called "Heal Your Mind, Heal Your Body." Part of that I think is attributed to Louise Hay, and it's about the mind body connection, that healing begins within, and then it is manifested without. And so, how do we not deny that we are these bodies? We just are. And I love that my predecessor truly believed that we were not made to just live 60, 70, or 80 years, that the biblical promise was 120 years. And that there should be those of us who are not exceptions, but the rule should start being living longer and longer. Now, we know a lot of that, watch this, is not the denial of the body. I am not my body. I don't exercise. I don't, or hating your body so much that you only feed it poison with preservatives and fried food and animal fats and all these things that we really are not designed to eat. Um, I, I'll give a little pat on my back to some things I don't do any longer. I never cook with animal fat. I always cook with some type of vegetable, usually some type of grapeseed oil, avocado oil, something of that nature, olive. As I almost never eat bacon. I know that y'all gonna get mad at me for saying that. I don't think that we should have a constant diet of consuming that type of animal fat. If you have to, make it leaner. But how do we preserve these bodies? And so we can either hate our bodies because we think that our bodies are causing us to be sinful, or we can literally hate our bodies by the way that we destroy it, by what we're eating or the neglect of it, the refusal of exercise. Some people, watch this, either they neglect their body completely, or Esther and I laugh sometimes. We'll go to work out together and we'll see people on the treadmill and we'll say, "Girl, you need to get off that treadmill and get something to eat." You hate your body so much you're killing it. And so finding that homeostasis between having a good balance of eating the right way, of exercising the right way, I believe that we should start living more than 100 years. One among us, Miss Winnie, is well on her way. In her mid 90s now, still gardening, still in her right mind. Still, she was there a couple Sundays ago, and I asked permission. I said, "Miss Winnie, do you feel like standing up?" And she looked at me like, "Do I feel like standing?" She popped up out of that chair and said, "Of course I feel like standing. I'm a young woman, 90, I think 93 years old." And so maybe we are starting to learn that our bodies, we are the body, and we should be living longer. And I accepted in my life. It took me 40 plus years to fully surrender to it, but I think we're designed to live in these bodies longer.
I'll share one more and we can close on this. Fred Hayes shared a quote. "Now let me express the divine idea in my body and affairs." That's a quote from Florence Scovel Shin, "that reminds me to focus and balance myself."
Focus and balance yourself, not apart from the body, Fred, but in the body. And so, yeah, that's a beautiful, Fred. That's a beautiful incorporation of that. It's think about our ideas of ourselves as triune beings. Okay, we are body, soul, spirit. And so if we break that down in a little bit different vernacular, we are flesh, we are emotion, and we are divinity. But it's all working together, and until all of those parts of what make up who we are singing the same song, okay, as Gandhi said, when you think, say, and do, when you get all those on the same page, that's when you find harmony. Well, what if our think, say, and do is relative to our body, soul, and spirit? When we get all of that on the same page, so what does that mean? I can't think as an enlightened person and eat as a person who is asleep in unconsciousness. I know don't let it take your joy there, but when I started attending some of Dr. Michael Beckwith's conferences. I went to one of his Revelation conferences in Atlanta with Bishop Pearson, and then Bishop Pearson flew me out to Los Angeles. He was speaking for Michael Beckwith out there. Both times I've attended his teachings, he is an incredibly enlightened speaker. Amazing. I mean, it feels like he's floating through when he's speaking. He's just tapped into vibration. It's amazing. But the other thing I noticed is the clothing that they sell is all on the same page. What does that mean? It is not clothing that's made in sweatshops. It is not clothing that's used child labor in some ways. They want to buy clothing. They recycle. At these conferences, you see recycling bins everywhere. Let's reuse, let's reduce, let's rethink how we treat the earth. Then, Dr. Beckwith invited me back to eat with him afterwards, you should see these tables of food laid out of grains and fish and vegetables and water and smoothies, and everything is on the same page. He's not just up there speaking enlightenment and then getting off and wearing clothes that were made in some Indonesian sweatshop, eating food that was an animal or from chickens who were all crammed in this tiny little thing and never had a chance to even walk around in a yard as a normal chicken would. Everything was on the same page. His think, his say, his do. And I was sitting there I was like, look at this. This is amazing that this man has all of this on the same page. And so we'll end with that. I know, Fred, I know you like Dr. Michael Beckwith as well. And so we're getting close to our 7:55 spot. I'm going to do this real quickly, give some quick shouts out. And then I'll ask Brandy to bring up the affirmation. Want to give some shout out to Franny, Roberta, Myrna, Terry, Jeffrey, Callie, Emma, Esther, Charles, Elijah, Gloria, Margie, Ben and Vicky, Josephine, Ivy and Margie, Astrid, Randy, Glenna, Michelle, Taria, Sheila, Doreen, Irma, Alita, Laverne. Look at all these people on Inauguration Day. I'm so proud. Tamara, Elaine, Fred, and Mary, Sheila, Cheryl, Bobby, Patricia, Sherby, Pastor Curtis, and Esther, Terry, Dr. Sharonda, Pastor Gloria. Today is her birthday. Happy birthday, Pastor Gloria Howard, Pastor Don, Ronald, Donnie. Is that a new Donnie Meyer? I don't see the name. Welcome. Glad you're here. Lenora, Richard, AJ from YouTube. So glad you're here. Susan, Courtney, Lawana, and Clarence. Thank you guys for joining us tonight. I love you guys so much. I hope you enjoyed the concert tonight. Come on, let's all read our closing affirmation together tonight. Read it out loud. I am not my thoughts. I am not the thinker of my thoughts. I am the observer witnessing the thinker thinking the thoughts. Tonight, I am not the voice in my head or any limitation of an inherited collective cultural conditioning, religious indoctrination, or even my past experiences. This week, I will mind my mind, free my mind, be free of my mind, and surrender to practice no mind. Amen. So it is. We love you guys. This Sunday, last name's J through P. We'd love to see you if you feel comfortable. Until then, we'll see you again Sunday morning. Go in peace. May God bless you.